So football season is finally back, and I thought this first game was actually a lot of fun. I know it was kind of a defensive battle. I know a lot of guys kind of like the more higher scoring games, but I really like this game. I was one of the people in the camp that actually really enjoyed the most recent Super Bowl, and I enjoyed this game for what it was. I mean, it was definitely sloppy football at times. It definitely wasn't high-flying offenses, but I thought it was a lot of fun. There were definitely a lot of takeaways to have throughout this game. Obviously, both defenses played very well. I was impressed with both defenses, not just the Packers. I thought the Bears defense played well as well. I thought there was some questionable play calling on both sides, especially when thinking about the Packers in their last drive, where for some reason they threw the ball on 2nd down and 5, but then ran it on 3rd down and 5. Like, I understand passing the ball on 2nd down and 5, but then why not pass the ball on 3rd down and 5 as well? That didn't make a lot of sense to me. And I could talk about, every questionable decision, every mistake that was made, every sloppy play that happened, but there's no doubt about it that there's one thing in particular you have to talk about when talking about the first game of the NFL's 100th season. And that is that the Packers defense absolutely dominated the Bears offense. I mean, there's no getting around it. Holding a team to just 3 points in today's NFL, especially when your offense wasn't exactly driving the ball too much yourself, you weren't getting much help out there, that was just really, it was one of the more impressive defense performances I've seen in quite some time. Although actually probably not that long, just simply because the most recent game we saw was also a great defensive performance with the Patriots shutting down the Rams. But I was definitely very impressed with this Packers defense, and most specifically the Packers defensive line. I was interested to see how the Packers were going to do this season. I figured that their defensive line and their defense as a whole would probably do okay. They did add some pieces. I thought it was going to be better this year. I did not think it was going to be this good. It looked great out there, and let's just jump into it. We'll start things off with this play. This was a fun play because really there was 2 great plays on this one. The first guy to keep an eye out for is Kenny Clark, as he will be going up one-on-one against the center. And of course, a one-on-one matchup against the center when you're Kenny Clark, that's an opportunity you love to have. You definitely like when that's going on. And the other situation is just the tight end who's going to be going up and blocking the new Packer, who definitely played very well in Adrian Amos. They kind of traded safeties a little bit, at least from the start of last year to this year. Obviously, HaHa Clinton-Dix had that Washington stint. But with HaHa Clinton-Dix now in Chicago and Amos now in Green Bay, I thought he definitely had a very good welcome to Green Bay party in that first game, especially against his former team. It was certainly a revenge game, so to speak. But anyways, one thing you're going to see right when this ball is snapped is look at Kenny Clark's swim move here. Look at how he's going to get his left arm just completely over the center instantly. I mean, that first step is so key in these types of plays, because now if you're a center, what can you really do? Not much at all. Really, your only hope is to try to get your left arm underneath Clark and try to just push him to the top half of the screen. That's your only hope on this play. But that's just not going to work out too well since Clark is just so strong. And also looking back over at Amos, notice how he's going to move over and try to get to the inside of the field and try to get to the inside of the field towards that tight end. So this now means, again, kind of a similar situation. That beginning portion of the play is so important. If you can get there quickly, now if you're a tight end, again, there's not really much you can do here. You can once again try to get your left arm to the inside and try to push him up to the top half of the screen, very similar to how you could have done that with Clark, but that's tough to do. And that's how they were both able to get into this play on a crucial 3rd down and 1 to hold them to a loss of 2. I mean, really a good play there by multiple guys, and that's kind of what we saw all night long from Green Bay. It just seemed like whatever they were doing, it was working. You really have to give the Packers defensive coordinator, Mike Pettin, just a tremendous amount of credit. It just seemed like he had Matt Nagy's number throughout that game. Every play call that Nagy had, he had an answer for. I mean, they were just totally on their toes the entire game, and it really worked out well for Green Bay. Like, take a look at this play. One thing you'll notice is that there's going to be 5 Green Bay Packers who are on a line on this play. So oftentimes, an offensive line would assume, okay, there's 5 guys, so all 5 of us will just watch a guy. And then since one of them typically would drop back in the coverage, well then just whoever is guarding the guy who drops back in the coverage, you kind of just go into zone there. That's the way it's supposed to work. However, Green Bay is going to be mixing things up here. Instead of just having one guy drop back in the coverage, they're going to have 2. Both of those 2 Packers right there in the middle of the field. And so now it's a 3-man rush, but only kind of, because there's also something else that's going to be going on. Those 2 Packers right there actually have a very important responsibility. It's man coverage, so they're responsible for covering those 2 Bears in the area, but at the same time, they'll also start off this play rushing the passer, so that way they can kind of create the effect of rushing the passer while still covering their guys. And so because of that, actually the key guy to watch here is going to be Blake Martinez. Because there's really 2 Bears who could be the ones who are ending up blocking him here. I mean, it could be the center or the right guard. However, there's going to be some sort of cross-up. It actually appears as though, The center has another guy who he has to keep out an eye on for, so I'm not going to blame him too much. However, the right guard, I think he just had a miscommunication, and he thought that the halfback was going to be blocking on this one. The halfback is blocking, however, because there's going to be two Packers on the top half of the screen who are going to be faking as though they're rushing the passer, he's going to move out to the top half of the screen to block. So this now means that Blake Martinez is able to run just completely free and get to Trubisky for a sack. I mean, again, that's just too easy. You can't be beating yourself if you're going to beat a good defense. To me, while sure Blake Martinez did his part, that's just a great example of really the Bears just getting out-coached. They got outsmarted on that one. If your offensive line isn't blocking, you can't do anything in the NFL. And when you have a good defensive coordinator who's dialing up these creative blitz packages or even just having a three-man rush but still generating pressure and you still can't do anything, I mean, that's going to be tough to win football games that way. Granted, it's the first game of the season. You expect some sloppy play. I do think that factored in. I do think that if this is the 15th game of the season, they're probably playing a little bit better. But you know what? Give credit to Mike Pettin for knowing it's the first game of the season and mixing things up a lot to kind of create some confusion with that Bears offensive line. One of the key ways that Mitchell Trubisky can beat you, I mean, listen, there's no doubt about it. He isn't as good of a thrower as some guys in the league, but one of his advantages is the fact that he can run the ball. However, I thought this Green Bay defensive line did a pretty good job of keeping his running game in check too. Like on this one, for example, there's going to be a right guard who's going to move up to block that interior lineman right there. And at first, it's going to work out pretty well. I mean, as you see, he's been moved over way up to the top half of the screen, and this is a good situation for Trubisky. He loves to run the ball, and so the fact that there is going to be a gap kind of right in the middle in between that interior lineman and also Zadarius Smith who's over there, this is now a very good situation, and Trubisky is going to try to run the ball. But one of the things that I actually didn't even think about when it picked up Zadarius Smith, but it does make a lot of sense, is that Zadarius Smith is a fast guy. So while Trubisky probably could take off and run and get past some of these slower guys, not Zadarius Smith. He's able to get up very quickly, take a couple of steps, and make that tackle. There really were a lot of guys just making plays. I mean, it seemed like there were so many different Packers who were contributing, and really that's what you have to do in a defense. You have to have a lot of guys contributing, and this next play will be another example. Once again, a critical 3rd down and 1, and it's actually going to be a bit of an interesting play concept by Chicago. This is actually a cover 0, it's going to be man coverage, but what Chicago is doing is they're going to run play action and then have a tight end run out to the top half of the screen. It's an interesting idea, and since, of course, Green Bay is expecting a run here, it's actually not the worst idea in the world. However, it is going to get sniffed out pretty quickly. I mean, as you see on your screen, a Green Bay defensive back is going to very quickly realize what's going on, and he's covering up this play. And you even saw Chris Collinsworth talk about this on the broadcast. It was really a good play by him. But for Trubisky, I would actually say that even though this isn't a great situation, I would have still said, you know what, you got to fire this one here. You got to give yourself a chance. While Trubisky does like to run the ball, the problem is Preston Smith is right there. With worse players, maybe you do try to run around him and try to get the first down. But Preston Smith is going to be able to create just enough contact that now Kenny Clark is going to be able to come over and finish the job. Trubisky still almost got out of it. You'd have to actually give him a little bit of credit for that, but he wasn't quite able to get out of it. It ended up being a 4th down and 1. I do think he should have just fired that ball right away, but I still don't think that would have worked. I think it was a really just well-executed play by that Packers defense. And listen, I'm not going to let Trubisky off the hook. He had some bad plays. There's no doubt about it. I thought he had 1 interception. I thought there could have been probably 3 interceptions that game. He didn't play great, but, I kind of like to focus on the positives. So instead of just talking about what went wrong with Trubisky, I'm going to be talking about what went right with the Packers defense. But of course, I have to be honest and tell the actual story. Trubisky didn't play well. It has to be mentioned. But one of the key plays that actually really helped the Packers kind of set up that interception was this one, where the way it's going to work is that first things first, the left tackle will be in charge of blocking the edge rusher on the bottom half of the screen, so that, you would expect that. I won't break down that part too much, but I'm just bringing that up because that edge rusher is actually going to win his matchup pretty well. This play worked in a couple of different ways, but what I really want to talk about is what's going on in the top half of the screen. It's going to be a relatively simple concept, but again, I'm bringing it up because it really seemed like every concept Green Bay tried against the Chicago Bears offense worked. The way it's going to work is that a Packers interior lineman is going to move up to the top half of the screen, and so in theory, a right guard will also move up in that direction. So then Green Bay can send their edge rusher also over to the bottom half of the screen. He'll try to get around him, and they'll hopefully be able to sack Trubisky on this one. There's a huge gap in between the guard and the center, so then once the edge rusher does pull over to try to hit Trubisky, he's able to do it, and also the edge rusher on the bottom half of the screen, who just won his 1-on-1 matchup, he was able to hit Trubisky as well, so there was a ton of contact. And the reason why that matters so much is, as you see, that receiver was open. If Trubisky had just another half second to make that throw, that's probably a touchdown and it's a tied game, and then we have to see if Aaron Rodgers can win the game in the last 2 minutes. Of course, they all have to play together. It is all one unit, so that's why I've even brought up some good plays by their secondary. But as a whole, their D-line really won that game for them, I thought. And I also thought that they really did just shut the door right when the Bears were trying to see if they could potentially come back. Like, take a look at this one. This is late in the game on the line. 1 minute and 12 seconds left, 3rd down and 8. So this is a key situation here. The Packer I'm going to want you to take a look at is Zadarius Smith, as he has a one-on-one matchup against the Bears left guard right over there. He's going to pull off a swim move, but notice how he's going to go about doing this. Right off the bat, he's honestly not even really trying to sell as though he's doing anything differently. As of right here, he's already moving his right arm up. He's already getting ready to try to see if he can get past that guard. And he's going to pull it off? Absolutely. He does it very quickly, creates the pressure, which doesn't allow Trubisky to get as good of a throw. I mean, again, I know Trubisky is going to get a lot of blame, and some of it very well deserved. He didn't play great, it has to be mentioned, but I do think it's worth mentioning that he was just under pressure all night. And this is not a bad Bears offensive line by any means. This is actually a pretty good Bears offensive line, but the Packers defensive line was just that much better. And of course, on the 4th down and 8, they won the game with an exclamation point, and here's how it was going to work. First, the Green Bay interior lineman would simply run up to the center, basically force a one-on-one matchup. That part not too fancy. But then what they're going to do is send another player over there to sort of in between the left guard and left tackle to try to get the left guard to move over to the bottom half of the screen. So then they can simply just pull Preston Smith up to the top half of the screen, he can run in between them, and potentially just get right to Trubisky for a sack. That's the way this play is supposed to work on paper. And so, of course, these things can work out, but also can not work out. It all depends on how aware the Bears' offensive line is. But as I've said in the past, it really seemed like every single type of thing that the Packers' defensive line was doing was working. Like as you see right here, both Packers who are kind of just doing their role in this play are doing their role very well. The one thing you really want to take a look at is the left guard is moved over very far to the bottom half of the screen. Honestly, he's the one I'm going to blame on this one. He should have his head up more. He should be looking up to try to block Preston Smith, who has now got a straight shot to Trubisky. He wasn't able to notice him. Preston Smith is able to get a straight shot to Trubisky. And at that point, you could blame Trubisky for not throwing the ball up. But the second you realize you're under pressure, you're going down. He just didn't have a shot on that one. I absolutely think that if I'm Matt Nagy, I'm saying, okay, listen, offensive line, you are spending all day tomorrow in the film room. You have got to realize what you did wrong and try to fix those problems. And if I'm Mike Pettin, I'm probably feeling pretty good about myself because that was an incredible performance. So yeah, I might make another video on this game because I don't have the all-22 footage yet. It usually takes like a day or two for the all-22 footage to come out. Once that comes out, I might make another video. I might make one on Darnell Savage. I thought he played really well last night. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the game. And also let me know, is there a player that you think would actually be a good guy to talk about once I get the all-22 footage? I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, thanks for watching.